Hey, it's Max again. In this video, I talk about one of the questions that I get the most as a serial founder. So everyone who thinks about running a startup, creating a business will have the question, how to validate a startup idea. And I want to walk you through how I did it in the past with one specific example and give you some insights on how I would also do it for the future. So my approach for the validation would look like 5 steps. First one, it's about customer discovery, learning what the problems of the customers are and how we might solve them. Second thing is the problem and the solution. So we think about how could a product look like that really solves the customer's needs. Then we are going to create an MVP or a test for the startup idea. We try to distribute it and then learn, iterate, or dismiss the idea. And we started to think about a new idea somewhere in the middle of last year, and we were really interested in everything that was related to the freelance economy. So more and more people were running their own freelance shop. More companies were using freelancers also like globally. And so we thought, hey, this is a really interesting space to be in. And there are also some examples like Upwork, Fiverr or Mold. They are really successful. And so there might be something that we can build on top of this, or there might be problems that we can solve. And for the customer discovery, I always suggest doing 2 things. So first of all, you can do a lot of desk research. And that means you look at the market size. You also look at the features that other people have. You can also look into things like Reddit and ask and see what the problems of the people are and try to bring that all together. And on the other hand, I suggest you talk to as many people as possible that are potential customers. And in these interviews, you can talk about, hey, tell me about your job. What are the problems that you are seeing working with freelancers? How do you solve it right now? And sometimes they are telling you, oh, this is really painful, or I've built my own solution in Excel or something. And then you know you are really onto something and can ideate a product on your own. And how I would do it is I would start to write down the problem statement. So everything that you heard from the customer interviews and also from the desk research. After you have the problem, you can think of an idea or solution, and you can also write that down. And what I like to do is also to put down core hypotheses and bets that we are taking. So for example, the core hypotheses for this business would be the freelance economy is growing over the next 10 to 15 years, and this is why more companies will have a higher percentage of freelancers in their workforce. And last but not least, I would try to define the ideal customer profile as early as possible, because that really helps you to run the experiments and see if your idea sticks. And an ideal customer profile can be something like, okay, I'm selling to startups in the size of 5 to 50 people. The buying person is the head of marketing, so the more specific you are, the better. In our case, we were thinking about an idea that helps companies to manage their freelance workforce, because we thought, hey, companies are using more and more freelancers to run their business, and they have an HR department and software that helps them operate their like fixed workforce. But why isn't there any kind of software that helps to manage their freelance workforce? So everything from paying them, contracts, and all of these things. And we decided, okay, for our test, it would be the best to create a landing page that we then fill or like drive traffic through, but we will come to that a little bit later, and then try to learn as much as possible from that. So long story short, we created this landing page, filled it with a bunch of content, and also tried to show Lance in a way that it is a bigger company and not just an MVP, so to build up trust. And this content can be, for example, an About Us page, a pricing page, or a few blog articles. What we then did, we had implemented everything in regards to tracking events. So we knew exactly which buttons were clicked and who was browsing on the website. We were also using Hotjar for that. And we were using a book demo button with our goal to bring people into the demo. And we were using Calendly for this. Furthermore, we set up the sales funnel and the performance ads to really drive traffic to the website. And this is what you can also do for your MVP. So in our case, we choose performance ads because they are really quick. You can spend money today and the first people will come over to the website, and you can see how the different keywords are doing and which keywords work well and which keywords underperform, for example. A regular sales process with cold outreach through LinkedIn or email takes a little bit longer, and you have to at first create a long list of people you want to talk to, then do the outreach, follow-ups and everything. And so this can take several weeks, but we thought, hey, the solution that we want to sell in the end will be distributed also mainly by a regular sales process. So we wanted to start that right away. Our goal was always to create demo bookings for lands. And this can be totally different for you. You can also have, for example, already a checkout or something where someone pays for your product, or your solution could be, hey, we want to bring people over to download a specific PDF or sign up for a webinar or something. But in our case, we thought, hey, demo booking is really, really good because we can also learn a lot in these demos. Okay, so after we did all of this, and it took around like 2 to 4 weeks, we tried to look at the sales funnel numbers and compare them to examples from our past where we did regular sales outreaches. And then we could look, hey, we got a response rate, an opening rate, and it relates to the benchmarks in a positive or negative way. Then we looked at the keywords and AdWords where we saw, okay, some keywords work well, some don't work well, and this is the price that we need to pay. And last but not least, we also looked at the hotjar recordings and the final number of demo bookings and the feedback on the cold outreach. And so, for example, for us, we did like 200 people that we contacted in 2 different groups through our cold sale outreach, and we booked around 10 demos and tried to then learn as much as possible, but also pitch the mock-up that we already had for the solution and try to bring them to a more like binding signing of an LOI or something. For us, we tried to learn as much as possible. And at the beginning, we had a thesis that we were working with ICP, like our ideal customer would be agencies with over 30% freelancers, and we were selling to the HR department. In reality, it was very different because in some companies it was procurement, in some HR, in some finance, and that helped really to refine the ICP. Also, we thought, hey, companies are already hiring globally and paying their freelancers would be a problem for them. To be honest, most companies were still hiring in their own country or like, for example, in the European Union. So it was really easy to pay and payment wasn't a struggle at all. Last but not least, we wanted to test the willingness to pay for a software as a service fee. But in our demo calls, we learned that most customers would prefer a percentage on the salary or the money that the freelancer gets. And the most interesting and most important thing, most of the potential clients said, hey, this is a nice to have solution, but it's not as pressing as we thought it would be. And the next steps would be for us, okay, do we want to continue the exploration and try a little bit different approach? In this case, we would iterate on our thesis, the product, and the ICP. And we can also think about changing the distribution method and run a next iteration of the test. In our case, we decided not to do a next test because it felt like the wrong thing to iterate on this product because the problem was not pressing enough. So we decided to do another MVP. And one important thing that I wanted to share, a lot of founders talk to me and say, hey, I have a waiting list of people that are interested in my product. But for me, the highest form of validation is always payment. And if you have thousands of people on the waiting list, this is fine, but this is not validation that your business will work out. So in the process of iterating your MVPs and also building the product, try to sell as early as possible and really learn from that. And thank you so much for listening on this week's episode. And if you want to learn more about how to grow your startup, feel free to subscribe.